But let me ask General Katoch. The point is that whether we like it or not, General Katoch, Pakistan is able to spin this narrative. Yes, for the last few years, especially at the UNGA, whether it was an Imran Khan or this year, a Shahbaz Sharif talked about Kashmir, not too many people took it seriously. But somehow they're able to spin a narrative which sells with the OIC countries, it sells with countries like Turkey and Malaysia, and then there is almost this universal brotherhood sort of thing with Pakistan when it comes to the Kashmir issue. India simply doesn't have that luxury.
Zafar, there are a few countries. You take Pakistan, Malaysia, Turkey, and China. All of them have a common interest as far as hitting out at India is concerned. Now, increasingly, as India is becoming economically and militarily more powerful, we are becoming a competitor to the major countries. And none of them will be your friends in future, despite the fact that the US and the European Union have very good and close relations with India. But as India's heft rises, we will be seen as a competitor. And these countries love to use human rights as a whip to beat India with. They have been answered very firmly by the Prime Minister, by the External Affairs Minister, by our ambassadors, and everybody across the board. And actually, each one of them know the truth. Everybody knows what is happening on the ground, especially amongst the foreigners. And I meet so many of these people at the senior level, the diplomats and the decision makers, ministers and governments. We have meetings with them. And all of them say, yes, we know it. But yet they are not prepared to do anything about it because they still see Pakistan as a sort of a state which they can utilize to deal with the Afghan situation if it is so required. So to that extent, Pakistan is still there.
So General, I can understand countries like Turkey and Malaysia coming to Pakistan's rescue. What explains the United States upgrading Pakistan's F-16 fleet?
Yeah, you see, as far as that F-16 fleet, okay, they have given $450 million, right? Again, it is also very soft signaling to India that, listen, there are certain issues which are our core interests, like the war in Ukraine, and support us there. We have been, now India is not going to be bullied by any country. So okay. I think that stance has been made very clear. So when these pinpricks can carry on, let Pakistan get any amount of F-16 that doesn't make a damn difference. We'll handle it. One. Number two, I think it's very important to understand that we need to ignore this country. I haven't understood why we keep looking at, off and on these arguments keep coming, we start talking about Pakistan. This is a failed country, period. It will not rise. They have crossed the tipping point. They will handle their own problems if they can. Most likely they can't. But as far as India is concerned, we should seal off all relationship. No diplomatic relationship, no sports, nothing. As far as we are concerned, Pakistan is a non-entity, and it's high time we started treating it so. The BJP spokesperson has very rightly said, the government has made a very strong commitment. There will be no talks with that country. And now Pakistan is begging for talks. We said, no, we don't have to talk to you. They are irrelevant. We will solve this Kashmir problem. We will get back POK and we will get it back on our terms.
No, while I agree with General Katoch, in principle, yes, the fact is that we should not be giving so much airtime to Pakistan, because after all, it is a country which has had to go with a begging bowl, and this is the reality. It has had to go with a begging bowl to the IMF and to the World Bank. It is a low-income developing country. India is the 5th largest economy in the world. Pakistan is the 24th or 25th, last I checked. But the problem is that this terror tap never ends. Like I said, yesterday there was an attack in Pulwama. Last week there was an attack in Udhampur. And some of it, I guess, is par for course. But this terror tap needs to end, Majid Hyderi. And fair enough, you talk about human rights record. But how come no one talks about human rights record of what's happening in Mirpur? Or what's happening in Gilgit-Baltistan? What is happening with the tens of thousands of Pakistanis who are protesting against Chinese projects in Balochistan? Fisher folks, poor folks who are protesting against these Chinese projects. How come they don't seem to have any human rights?
Zaga Sahab, firstly, I fail to understand this logic that if talks and terror can't go together, how can trade and terror go together? How can cricket and terror go together? How can sweets and terror go together? I fail to understand this. logic
No, but
of the
cricket and
BJP
terror
government.
are not going
But then,
together. We're
see,
not playing bilaterally. Trade and terror, there is very, very minimal trade that's going on. Pakistan, as you are well aware,
whatever we can even have
as you are
minimal
well
level of
aware,
talks,
does
that's
not give
wrong.
India transit rights for trade into Afghanistan or to Central Asian Republic. So I don't know where you're making the connection that talks and terror
Sir,
don't
I'll
go,
put
therefore
forth a very
other things are
simple point. I'll
also
put
going.
forth a very simple point.
Hmm.
My point is very simple. The policy of Indian state is that no foreign intervention or interference will be
Yes.
allowed on Kashmir.
Yes.
Now, if that is your policy, why are you showcasing the pain of Kashmir, be it true or fake or dramatized, whichever we are putting? Because there are even allegations against security forces at times. So why
but
this
Majid,
kind of duplicity again on the part of
this in
BJP?
part in the previous time that you spoke as well. Don't you think Shoaib Lone's story should not be put out there for the world? Don't you think Karambir
No, there
Khan's
is even a
story should
story
be
of
put
a
out there for
Hyderpura
the
girl.
world to know?
There is even story of Hyderi girl who was weeping over the killing of her father. There are many stories which need to be told, but I am saying this is against the Indian policy of Indian state. So why are you making a mockery of your own policy? BJP basically doesn't have a policy on Kashmir, and that is what is getting exposed on the show.
Okay.
They knew how to abrogate 370, but they don't know how to take Kashmir forward. They have no plan on Kashmir, no policy on Kashmir.
Okay.
That is why
RP
when
Singh
Honorable Home
respond,
Minister
you went and
are coming to
abrogated
Kashmir,
Article
you have a
370,
terror
लेकिन उसके
strike.
बाद कुछ हुआ नहीं. आपने कहा कि आतंकवाद खत्म हो जाएगा, आतंकवाद तो अभी भी चल रहा है.
I thought Majid Hyderi would have mended his ways, but he still is a Pakistan sympathizer. He's not improving on that. So he can stay with that. And in this country, one has liberty to be Pakistan sympathizer. And he's using that as an advantage to propagate the point of view of Pakistan. But that point aside, let's to Mr. Kamar Chima, is Pakistan still under Financial Action Task Force grey list or not from last 4 years? You're talking about that Pakistan is being acknowledged and recognized. I mean, everyone knows that where Osama bin Laden was found, where Hafiz Saeed is, where other terrorists, where people like Dawood are. I mean, everyone knows that. And then any activity which happens in the world which is related to terror, ultimately the roots come to the Pakistan. Everyone knows that. And then you can keep going around the world, but ultimately you have been exposed. Even the Gulf countries don't support you anymore. And then China has a limited role to play now with Pakistan. They also know that how Pakistan is using them, rather they're using the Pakistan. So you are exposed well in the world, and then yes, it's high time that people around the world should know what's happening on ground. Again, it's not only Hindu Pandits or Kashmiri Pandits, it's even Muslims who are targeted by terrorists.
Dr. Kamar Chima, if Pakistan state or elements within the Pakistan state have nothing to do with terror, pray may I ask you, why is it that Pakistan has been in the grey list of the Financial Action Task Force for the last 4 years?